name was Louisa Dunne, a 75-year-old widow, once active in her community, but growing quieter with age. She was found dead in her home on Britannia Road in eastern Bristol. She'd been raped and murdered. The crime shocked the neighborhood, then slowly faded into cold case limbo, like so many others. Until nearly 6 decades later, someone knocked on the door of a care home in Ipswich and arrested a 92-year-old man named Ryland Headley. To anyone who knew him, Headley was just an old man, grey, frail, polite. But the truth was far darker. Beneath that paper-thin shell of age was a violent predator who had evaded justice since 1967. And what finally caught up to him? Science, patience, and the persistence of investigators who never gave up. The original investigation in 1967 had been thorough by the standards of the time. Police collected palm prints, took statements from neighbors who'd heard screams that night, and preserved Louisa's clothing. But DNA testing didn't exist. There were no solid leads. The case went cold. Then, in 2023, forensic analysts re-examined the evidence using modern technology. Semen found on Louisa's skirt was submitted for DNA profiling. And there it was. A match. A 1,000,000,000-to-1 match, to be precise. The DNA belonged to Ryland Headley, now in his 90s, and his sample had been quietly added to the national database in 2012 following a previous arrest. The palm print from Louisa's home also matched his. That was 2 pieces of forensic evidence, both untouched by time, both damning. But there was more. Back in 1977, a full 10 years after Louisa's murder, Headley had raped 2 elderly women in Ipswich. One of them, aged 79, had given a chillingly familiar account. A man broke into her home in the dead of night, assaulted her, then left without a word. He was arrested and served just 2 years in prison. After that, he vanished into a quiet life, blending into the background like wallpaper. Those crimes came back to haunt him in 2025. The prosecution didn't just rely on science. They used what's known as bad character evidence, legally admissible accounts of previous similar behavior that painted a pattern. Elderly women, nighttime assaults, the brutality, the silence. It was all there. In court, Headley seemed confused at times, but his statements were telling. When arrested, he reportedly said, "I'm very sick. Where are you getting all this from?" It wasn't denial. It wasn't shock. It was fear. His victim, Louisa Dunne, was not just a name on a case file. Her granddaughter, Mary Dainton, gave a moving statement in court. She said, "I accepted that some murders just never get solved. It falls to me to speak for people who are no longer here." And with that, Louisa's voice, silent for 58 years, finally echoed in a courtroom. The judge did not hold back. He called the murder a pitiless and cruel act by a depraved man. He sentenced Headley to life in prison, with a minimum term of 20 years, a sentence no one expects him to survive. The judge's final words were chilling. "You will never be released. You will die in prison." Headley showed no emotion. Justice, in this case, was slow, unbelievably slow. But it came, and in doing so, it broke a record. The oldest known cold case in the United Kingdom to end in a conviction. Think about that. A woman murdered in the summer of 1967. A killer who went free for nearly 60 years. Evidence that waited in silence for the world to catch up. And a granddaughter who never stopped hoping for answers. This case isn't just about one man and one murder. It's about all the cases that sit in evidence rooms, waiting. It's about forensic scientists who spend their lives examining fragments, prints, fibers, and fluids, hoping that one day something will match. It's about the victims whose stories were never told, and the families who quietly grieve for people everyone else has forgotten. Ryland Headley thought he'd gotten away with it. He thought that time had buried his crime, just like it buried his victim. But time, as it turns out, remembers. It remembers every scream, behind every door, every fingerprint left on glass, every careless mistake. And eventually, no matter how long it takes, time delivers justice. Louisa Dunne, born in 1892, murdered in 1967, vindicated in 2025. Her story is no longer buried. It's part of history now, part of justice, and part of why we keep digging, keep testing, and keep telling these stories. Because even when killers grow